Picture this. A man sits in the witness stand, surrounded by lawyers and cameras, his entire life hanging by a thread. For months, he's maintained his innocence. Then, in a single moment, something shifts. His hands tremble, his voice cracks, and everything the jury thought they knew might be about to change. These are the moments that don't make it into Hollywood scripts, because they're far too real, far too raw, and far too consequential. Welcome back to the verdict room. Today we're examining the most dramatic courtroom moments caught on camera, the exchanges that revealed character, exposed lies, and sometimes changed the course of justice itself. Our first stop takes us to South Carolina in 2023, to a courtroom packed with reporters, spectators, and a nation watching. We're talking about Alex Murdaugh. If you've been following true crime over the past 3 years, you know the name. A prominent legal dynasty, a murdered wife and son, millions in stolen money, and a man facing life in prison. But what made this trial legendary wasn't just the facts, it was the moment when the mask slipped. Alex Murdaugh came from old South Carolina money. His family had controlled the Colleton County legal system for generations. Then, in June 2021, his wife Maggie and son Paul were murdered in what police called an execution-style killing on their hunting property. For nearly 2 years, Murdaugh claimed he wasn't there that night. He had an alibi. He was across town visiting his mother. He was devastated but innocent. Then came the financial unraveling. Investigators discovered he'd stolen nearly $10 million from his law firm and clients. He'd forged documents. He'd fabricated stories about being shot in the head. And suddenly motive appeared like a spotlight on the witness stand. When Murdaugh finally testified in his own defense in March 2023, the courtroom went silent. This was it. The moment a jury would look him in the eye and decide, is this a grieving father or a calculated murderer? His attorney asked him directly, "Did you murder your wife and son?" Murdaugh's response was immediate. "No, sir, I did not." But here's where it gets complicated, and here's where the real drama unfolded. The prosecution's cross-examination was surgical. They walked through the timeline, they presented cell phone data showing his location near the crime scene. They played video evidence of him at the kennels minutes before the murders, contradicting his alibi. And then came the admission that broke the case open. Murdaugh confessed to lying to investigators. He admitted he'd lied about his whereabouts. He said he was actually at the kennels that evening, despite telling police he was never there. Why lie? Because he was terrified they'd find out about his financial crimes. The jury watched as a prominent attorney, a man who'd spent his career arguing cases in courtrooms across the South, unraveled on the stand. This was a man trained to control his narrative, and he couldn't. In March 2023, that jury deliberated for just 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict. Life without parole. As he was led from the courtroom, Murdaugh's face showed no emotion. But for legal observers, this case represented something profound. No matter how much money you have, no matter how well connected your family is, when you sit in that witness stand, the truth has a way of emerging. Now let's shift to another case that's been unfolding in real time in 2026. Boston. A Boston police officer is dead. His girlfriend, Karen Red, stands accused. She claims she didn't hit him with an SUV, that she was framed. And here's the stunning part. As of June 2026, Karen Red has filed suit against the very police agencies that investigated her boyfriend's death, claiming corruption and evidence tampering. The case itself defies easy explanation. Boston police officer Boston Teague was found dead outside a home in January 2022. Prosecutors charged Karen Red with second-degree murder, claiming she hit him with her SUV. But Reed's defense team, and increasingly independent analysts, have raised serious questions about the investigation. They've argued that tunnel vision led investigators to fixate on Reed when other suspects were never fully explored. What makes this case so dramatic isn't a single courtroom moment. It's the ongoing cascade of revelations. In 2026, as the case moved toward trial, Reed's legal team filed a federal lawsuit against the Boston Police Department and state police, accusing them of withholding exculpatory evidence. That's evidence that could prove her innocence. Detective Michael Proctor, a key investigator, filed a protective order in early June 2026, preventing Reed's attorneys from questioning him about his investigative methods. Think about what that means. In a justice system built on confrontation and cross-examination, an investigator is using the legal system to prevent being questioned about how he conducted his investigation. Reed's attorneys wanted to depose him, to ask him tough questions about evidence handling, about alternative suspects, about the timeline, and he said no. The legal battle over those depositions has become a proxy for the larger question haunting this case. What happened that night, and did investigators actually want to know? Or did they want to prove a predetermined narrative? The courtroom drama here isn't a defendant's confession. It's a defendant pushing back so hard against the system that the system itself becomes the story. And as of June 2026, that case is still unfolding, making it one of the most consequential ongoing legal battles in America. But let's move to a case where justice was finally served, or rather finally corrected. Philadelphia, June 2026. 3 men walked out of prison after nearly 30 years behind bars. Their convictions were overturned, the charges that sent them to prison in 1997 were dismissed, and the moment those prison doors opened was captured not in a dramatic courtroom scene, but in the embrace of families who thought they'd lost them forever. The Innocence Project, a national organization dedicated to exonerating wrongfully convicted people through DNA evidence, had been fighting this case for years. The evidence was circumstantial, witness testimony had been crucial to the conviction. But decades later, with better forensic science, the truth emerged differently. The judge who overturned the convictions ruled that the evidence supporting the original conviction was insufficient, and that the witnesses may have been unreliable. What's remarkable about exonerations like this one is that they often don't happen in a single dramatic moment. There's no shocked jury, there's no confession. Instead, there's years of grinding legal work, appeals filed, DNA evidence analyzed, witness statements re-examined, and then finally a judge, examining evidence through the lens of modern forensic science and fresh legal perspective, says, "We got this wrong. These 3 men didn't commit this crime." The courtroom moment, when it finally came, was quiet. The judge announced the overturning of the convictions. And then these men, who'd spent the last 3 decades in prison for crimes they didn't commit, walked out into a world that had changed dramatically. One of them was reunited with family members. It's a stark reminder that courtroom drama isn't always about what happens during testimony. Sometimes it's about what happens when a system finally admits error. Now let's step back and understand what makes a courtroom moment truly dramatic. Because not every tense exchange in court becomes a turning point. What separates the moments that matter from the moments that fade? First, stakes. The higher the stakes, a murder conviction, a life sentence, a family's future, the more electricity charges through the courtroom. Second, expectation reversal. Moments become dramatic when something unexpected happens. Alex Murdaugh was supposed to explain his alibi convincingly. Instead, he admitted to lying. Karen Red was supposed to quietly accept the prosecution's narrative. Instead, she fought back so publicly that police corruption became the centerpiece of the story. Third, vulnerability. When powerful people, lawyers, police officers, judges, become vulnerable, cameras capture it, and juries feel it. Here's something crucial that's changed in 2026. Cameras are everywhere. Most courtrooms now have recording systems. High-profile cases are live-streamed. Social media explodes in real time. This means that courtroom moments don't just influence the jury, they influence public opinion, appellate courts, and sometimes the political will to reform the system itself. The downside, courtroom drama can sometimes overshadow the actual legal issues. A defendant who cries on the stand might get more sympathy than a defendant whose legal arguments are stronger. A prosecutor who gives a rousing closing argument might sway a jury more than the forensic evidence actually supports. These are the tensions at the heart of modern justice. Let's consider what these dramatic moments reveal about our legal system. First, they show that justice is human. It's not just about evidence and statutes, it's about how people respond under pressure, how they tell their stories, how they maintain composure, or lose it. Alex Murdaugh's confession about lying to investigators was devastating not because it proved he killed his wife and son, but because it showed jurors his character. A man willing to lie to police once might lie about bigger things, Second, these moments reveal the power imbalance in criminal justice. Karen Red has had to fight not just prosecutors, but the investigating agency itself. 3 men in Philadelphia lost 30 years to a system that convicted them based on unreliable evidence. These cases show that being innocent doesn't guarantee justice. Fighting for justice requires resources, representation, and persistence. The Innocence Project exists precisely because the system, left to itself, doesn't always correct its errors. Third, dramatic courtroom moments expose the gap between narrative and evidence. Alex Murdaugh's lawyers told a story. The prosecution told a different story. The jury had to decide which story matched the evidence. In Karen Reed's case, her narrative, that she's been framed, challenges the official narrative. And in the Philadelphia exonerations, the evidence itself, examined fresh, told a completely different story than the original jury heard. As we head into the second half of 2026, there are several high-profile cases that could generate significant courtroom drama. The Supreme Court is still working through its docket. New Murdaugh trial hearings are underway, as he's appealing his conviction and facing potential new charges related to the death of Gloria Satterfield, a housekeeper. And countless other cases are making their way through the system, with moments of truth waiting to unfold. What these dramatic courtroom moments ultimately teach us is this: the legal system is a stage where human nature is exposed under intense pressure. Some people rise to the challenge, some people break. And in those moments of breaking or breakthrough, we sometimes get glimpses of the truth. Not always the truth about who committed a crime, but the truth about character, about power, about how institutions respond when they're challenged. The question for you, and for all of us watching these cases unfold, is: what do we do when we see those moments? Do we assume the system will work? Do we trust that juries will see what we see? Or do we recognize, as the Innocence Project does, that innocent people can be convicted, that investigations can be corrupted, and that the most dramatic courtroom moment might not be the confession? It might be the moment when someone finally stands up and says, "Wait, we got this wrong." So here's what I want to know. Which of these cases shocked you most? Do you think Alex Murdaugh was truly guilty, or do you have doubts? Is Karen Reed a victim of injustice, or is there more to her story? And what does it say about our system that 3 men had to wait 30 years for truth to finally be recognized? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to The Verdict Room for more deep-dive legal analysis, real case breakdowns, and the stories behind the headlines. And if you found this examination of courtroom drama compelling, share it with someone who cares about how justice actually works. Because these aren't just dramatic moments, they're windows into the system that all of us depend on. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the verdict room.